better off being a Netflix than you are a Blockbuster. Don't romanticize the methodology of what you do. Romanticize the result that you create.
Welcome to the Health Science Coach Podcast. My name is Drew Garner, and I'm a health science and physical education teacher. This is a podcast to help students, parents, and recent graduates learn about pathways into healthcare and sports medicine careers. These industry professionals lay out how their experiences have helped them get to where they are now. If you enjoy this content, please subscribe to the channel or download through your podcast player. Thanks again for spending some time with us today. Now let's dig in. Along the way of personal training, it's your second career as far as, professional careers. You did sales for quite a while, and then you jumped into personal training. I would say, do you have any regrets of not jumping in earlier? But I'm going to change the question a little bit as far as personal training wise. Do you have anything that you wish you would have gone back and done a little bit differently from the time that you started as a personal trainer?
I wish that I wish that my second certification would have been more of a personal training business certification, a la personal trainer development center.
Okay.
And for any of the students out there listening, as if you decide to get in this career, as you track towards that goal of being a personal trainer, I can't overstate how much more significant your understanding of business will help you versus getting another certification for the exercise of it or the nutrition of it.
Right.
Now, having said that, Drew, I have to be transparent. I started personal training online 2 years before the Personal Trainer Development Center had an online training course for business.
Right.
So I didn't have the opportunity to enroll in it, even if I wanted to back then.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, online training is so common. Like everybody knows somebody who's done online training or has one. But the leaning into the business will probably benefit a lot of personal trainers. And now I'm saying this as a person who has a degree in business, but leaning into the business aspect is probably going to cover a lot more of the deficiency that is preventing you from having success as a personal trainer than getting another certification, because the people who hire you, I've never had a person ask me what my certifications are. They don't have a clue. The CES, CPT, CSCS. People don't know what that means.
Right.
Other coaches do, but people you could have, a doctorate in exercise science, and people will just call you a trainer. It's irrelevant unless you're working for, obviously, through a major sports organization or a college or maybe even a high school. But most people don't have the understanding to differentiate between the levels of your education. They just know if your ad looked enticing, or if the way you spoke to them on the phone made them comfortable, or if your prices are in a range that are doable for them. Those things are what your clientele are going to interpret the easiest. And what is least significant to them probably is the actual certifications that you hold. So that's one thing I would do differently.
Okay. So then with those certifications that you do currently have, do you have to do any sort of professional development, or do you choose to do any personal development to learn more about fitness training and then kind of like some of the new industry trends that are happening?
Absolutely. For me, first of all, there's continuing education across the board, much like there is for educators, right? There's always going to be some coursework to make sure that you are up on the information, because as we all know, science changes rapidly. The science of this phone versus my first little Nokia, wildly different science. When I was in college, we couldn't have had this conversation over the internet, right? It's been impossible.
Same with me. Yeah.
Right. So nutrition, exercise science, there's always something to be revealed. But personally, I work in a niche that I don't exist. If I was training, 40 to 50-year-old men who are under 6 foot, I know implicitly all about my niche, but I'm coaching women over 30, right? Typically moms. I'm not a mom, right? I don't even have any kids, Drew. So I'm not even a parent. So for me, the personal development comes in lots of reading,
Okay.
uh, diving into and immersing myself to the extent that I can, a culture in which I do not exist. It's something that I've been taught, that we talk about, called cultural humility.
Right.
And that's me understanding that I can never understand more about a woman over 30 who is a mother, her experience, than she can. I need to be humble in allowing myself to be educated by the demographic that I'm serving.
Mhm.
So I'm reading and listening to people like Brene Brown, right?
Yeah.
I'm reading books like the Menopause Manifesto, as odd as that seems for the person that you're seeing here. I'm reading books about women and exercise, anatomy and physiology.
Mhm.
Reading books about the intersection of workplace discrimination and the wage gap for gender, like all of these things that would seem sort of weird for a guy like me who loves R&B, rap, and PlayStation to be reading. But this informs me in the language and my ability to communicate with depth with
Right.
the demographic that I work with. So personal development is going to be a big thing if you want to move in the direction of this business. And if I was working with athletes, Drew, I'd be reading up on that. You know,
Right.
I'd
Yeah.
be reading
So,
on 40 times, and you name it. Immersion is a gateway to understanding, typically.
yeah, and I think that's important about learning about your niche and what they need as far as the um, programs and exercise and what they're going through and learning their experiences. And I think that fits in really good with what you said about the experience. As far as career goals, what are you looking at trying to achieve? Like you've mentioned, 40s right now. Um, Next 10 years, what are you trying to achieve personally, professionally, with your company? Where do you kind of see yourself growing and developing?
Absolutely. So one of the first things for me is sort of moving from one-to-one trainer to educator. Personal
Okay.
Trainer Development Center is
Yeah.
helping me do that. They have employed me as a mentor. I work closely. I think you
Oh,
probably spoke with Amber,
yep.
Amber Reynolds. Yeah. So that's someone that I work closely with as a mentor in that organization for other
Yeah.
coaches. Uh, moving to speaking engagements, right? Panelists,
Hmm.
touring and educating not only clients or people that would be clients, but touring and educating personal trainers and coaches around the world as well. I've got a skeletal outline for a book. So be, going from a place of being a generalist, and for the students listening, this may be something that you want to consider. A generalist is well versed in what they do, right?
Right.
Let's say a doctor, and the income is equivalent or on board with general practitioner as a doctor.
Yeah.
You go into a specialist, right? And maybe now you're a pediatric cardiovascular surgeon, right? You
Yeah.
only do heart surgeries on children, minors, and now your influence has jumped, your specificity is narrower, but your influence jumped, and probably so too your income. And then you have authority, right? And that's someone that the industry looks to as sort of a guide and a and a and and sort of a someone who teaches across the board, pulls in specialists and people from other places to sort of curate the understanding of the general industry. So I went from a general personal trainer to one that only works with moms specifically, or women over 30. So I'm woman specific, which allows me to understand more about that one demographic, become an expert there, and my income rose. And
Right.
for me, to answer this question, to land the plane, going from that to authority, a person that trainers look to, and people who want greater fitness levels look to as an authority, is the next step for me that I'd like to achieve. So uh, that that will take me out of the game of working closely one-on-one with clients, but hopefully
Mhm.
allow me to be a bit more influential, and again, earning income with a bit less time commitment involved in
Yeah.
generating the said income.
Yeah, I think that fits in really well with just seeing the tier and the development through your process of your profession.
Yeah.
And you kind of, I wanted to hit on this earlier, but you said you have your own app. Is that something that is for your clients, or how does that app kind of, what is it, and what's it kind of look like for a client?
Yeah, absolutely. It's you guys probably can't see my shirt, but it says Fitness
Yeah.
Jones Training. And the app is called Fitness Jones Training app, and it's a link that I can send to my client. So it's what we call a white label app.
Yep.
And again, for the students, anytime you hear the term white label, it typically means that someone has built something that you can utilize and assign your brand to. So I'm assigning my brand to this application. It's called Trainerize, Trainerize. And there's a white label feature so that when my clients download the app, they're downloading the Fitness Jones Training app. That's the icon that appears on their phone screen. And effectively, what it allows me to do is it allows me to build their training protocol. So they'll see their workout items listed. I can enter in directions. There are videos of me with a voiceover tutorial explaining how the exercise is done. And
Right.
in the app, they can track the data. They can track how much weight they lifted,
Okay.
how many repetitions, how many sets. It will generate things like personal best badges that will show up on the screen, or congratulatory animations for completing a certain amount of workouts in a row. And I've probably got clients working out right now while I'm here doing this, annoying Drew, which has been a joy for me so far. I hope it's not over anytime soon. I'd
No,
love
I
to
love
annoy
it.
you more.
Awesome.
But that app it was a part of my initial development as an online trainer back when nobody knew what an online trainer was, right? So I used PayPal for my transactions
Mhm.
because people knew PayPal even though they had no idea what an online trainer was.
Right.
People are going to be very skeptical when they don't know you. They can't meet you. They can't shake your hand. You exist somewhere else on the planet. So these were sort of considerations for uh, easing, allowing a psychological sales resistance wall to drop on behalf of my potential client. Again, and these are things that you learn through the marketing and the branding and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I love the app, and my clients seem to love it too. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool. By having that white label, it's giving me some ideas of different things that could be used for in different programs as far as training wise, and just kind of the general idea of what that looks like. Let's kind of talk career advice now and go back, and we got 4 different kind of time frames. Not necessarily you in high school, but somebody that's in high school right now. If you can envision yourself back as a 17-year-old in today's world, I think it'd be completely different than when you and I were back in that time frame.
Yes.
But as far as a high school student interested in getting into personal training, what advice would you have for them to start doing now as, a high school junior, sophomore, senior, something like that?
Yeah, it's so much simpler now. For me, what were magazines and periodicals and going to the library, just social media now. So if you're in that high school age and you want to move into this, type of job, consume great content, right? Follow credentialed, certified, verified trainers on your Instagram app, on your Facebook app. Follow the publications Instagram, like a men's health or women's fitness or muscle and fitness on Instagram, because what you're going to get is you're going to get credentialed authors giving you information about not only the science of personal training, but the business side of personal training. So following great credentialed professionals on from the business side all the way over to the exercise side, that can be really helpful. Just in high school, it's a great time to start consuming the information that may not be a formalized education, but you're getting information from people who have a formal education on the subject.
Right.
With how pervasive and inundated we are with social media, that doesn't require a ton of effort for you to do, but it's a great way for you to build your knowledge base.
Yeah. And then as far as a college undergraduate or, somebody that's in their 20s ish, 21, 20, that's interested in personal training, maybe they are doing that business degree or getting associates in something like that. And they just have that passion for exercise and fitness, or maybe they're studying exercise kinesiology, and they want to do that personal training type route. What kind of ideas for, maybe shadowing or real world experience would you kind of recommend them jumping into?
Absolutely. Most of you are going to have an opportunity for internship, and most big box gyms. If you're on track at that point, you're in college and you're already on that track. You've probably got access to people who can provide you further access to a gym situation, right? Internship at a gym, work the front desk, be as nice as you can, as polite as you can, as helpful as you can, go the extra mile. That time in your life as you're moving into your career is a great time to start learning the importance of building strong relationships with colleagues, collaboration over competition, because you or your peers, or you and your peers, are the future leaders of the industry. And at some point, your peer is going to be in charge of something. They may be in charge of one of those media publications that come through social media. They may end up owning a gym or a string of gyms. You may end up in an ownership position. You cannot overstate the importance of building collaborative relationships with your peers, because most of my opportunities that I've had, this opportunity included, this was because of relationship with Amber Reynolds from
Yep.
PTDC, who sent me a message and said, "Hey, dude, I had a great interview. I know how good you are on camera, right? You're always so nice to everybody. You never meet a stranger." That statement is a result of my relationship with my peer.
Yep.
Other than that, I would not be sitting here enjoying this opportunity again to annoy Drew, which I love so much. But at that point in your life, this is really the point where you want to start making influential connections. It will keep you employed. It will keep you on the top of people's minds. It will keep you in the midst of opportunities that maybe your qualifications don't warrant. I've been in rooms with people that are much more intelligent, much more credentialed, because of my attitude and my relationship with my peers. Bar none, for me, that's the most important thing at that point of your educational career, or that early in your working career.
Yeah, I think that's really, really solid advice as far as, the networking side of things, as well as keeping up with your peers. And it's always kind of funny. I tell my students this in class, my dad told me this when I don't even remember, middle school or early high school, but he said, "Do you know what they call nerds 20 years from now?" And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, they call them boss."
That's exactly what they call them.
And so just knowing those type of people and, forming those relationships with everybody that you're involved with, whether it's the top student or the bottom student, or, the person isn't as sociable, but later on in life, you may be looking at that person for a job, or you may be looking to hire that person.
Right.
So I think that's kind of interesting. So let's look at somebody getting ready to finish or get their certification to become a personal trainer. They put in the time, they put in the effort, paid their money. They're getting ready to go take that test. What advice would you have for them as far as, that time and frame of your life?
Be the most coachable person in every room that you step into. When you get to this stage, one of the paradoxical situations that you run into in life is when you become educated to the point that you realize you know nothing, right? You get so much information, and when you get to that point, like you've got a degree, maybe your first job, this is the point where you need to realize that you don't know anything at all, right? So you need to just hit that reset button. I am always going to stand out in any situation as the most coachable person in the room. You need a volunteer, I'll volunteer. Who has a question? I have a question.
Right.
I want to be the most coachable person in any situation. I want to be extremely easy to work with. I never want to assume that I know more than I do, and I might. Everyone has something to educate you on. Like there's no level at which a person doesn't know something that you don't.
Right.
It's impossible to be in a situation where every single person in any room doesn't know some piece of information that you don't. Um, this sort of ties into my last statement. But man, when you are the most coachable person in any room, you get many more opportunities than other people do, because you're willing to assume the role of apprentice, right?
Yeah.
Willing apprentice is a great place to be. You make the job of the person who has mastery over the subject so much easier when you're a willing apprentice, and that too will put you in places where your intellect can't take you. The
Hmm.
fact that you're easier to work with will give you more opportunities than someone who is more intelligent, more equipped, and more difficult to work with. Because let me tell you, when you achieve mastery, the last thing you want in your midst is a headache across the board.
Yeah.
So that's my most earnest suggestion when you're at that stage in life. Uh, be willing to be the sponge, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that a lot. And that kind of ties into the next question as far as being that sponge, as advice for somebody that's, let's say, 6 months into being a personal trainer, coming out of school with that degree, with that certification, whatever that looks like for that personal trainer, right when you get out, you think you know it all. And like you mentioned, you don't know much until you're there, until you're in the moment. And being a teacher, I did the student teaching. I was in school for 3 years after having my marketing degree. So as an older student in my mid 20s, getting my teaching degree, I thought I knew how it looked and what it looked like. And now, 10 years in, it's completely different than it was year 1, 2, 3, even year 5. And now that I'm 10 years in, I think the next 10 years will be just smooth sailing until something crazy happens again. But as far as that employee that's 6 months into their career as a personal trainer, what advice would you have for them going into their life or their situation?
Yeah, I think when you get sort of 6 months in on this career, I think you need to start thinking about disruption. Like, what are you've observed for a little while? Hopefully, it's a great time to separate yourself somewhat from the status quo in terms of your thinking, and
Right.
start to think, what are we missing here? I've been a good peer, right? I've been a great sponge. I've been an awesome apprentice. What would I do differently though? Now,
Right.
I don't need to articulate this to the people that I'm working for or with, but it's a great period because the reason that a lot of young people start revolutionary things is because they're young people, and they have not yet settled into the thought that there are more impossibilities than there are possibilities, right?
Yeah.
You can take advantage of that when you're new in an industry, right? You don't want to come in with that mindset, but 6 months in, you need to start thinking about the things that people that are settled into processes are not thinking about,
Yeah.
because they are settled into
Mhm.
processes. You're going to have new eyes, as we say, and those new eyes are going to allow you to think a bit more radically, and a bit more with a bit less rigidity. You won't be as rigid in your thinking yet, and that
Right.
will come. Trust me. The older you get a little bit more fixed in your ways. But that's a great time to start thinking, what are the old guys missing here?
Yeah.
Now I was already an old guy when I came in, so I was thinking, what are my peers think missing here?
Right.
But that's a great time for exploratory thought,
Yeah.
to try some things. You're not too far into your career or into life where you can't recover. Look, you could at that point, maybe you're what, 22ish,
Yeah.
maybe
Usually.
23. You could make 10 years worth of mistakes and still be 7 years younger than I was when I started this business, right? So you're golden, man. Use that time. You've probably got no spouse, no mortgage, no kids.
Yep.
This is the time of your life to think outside the box and consider what you might be able to revolutionize. Uh, think a little bit more out of the box during that period. That's something that I would highly suggest
Yeah,
because
I
you
like
guys are
that.
going to change the industry.
Yeah, I like that disruption idea, and it's time for self-reflection with that also. And, where you're sitting at between the industry and yourself and what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing, kind of merging those two, like you mentioned. As far as a book or a publication or something that you think somebody that's in high school or college might be interested in reading if they were going to become a personal trainer.
Yeah, heck, there's so many. Um, I would say because of the fact that a lot of personal training, and I don't know how this is going to be in 10 years. So
Right.
I'm guessing here. Right now, as of April 2022, I would say on one end, I like something like a jab, 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 right cross. That's a book by Gary Vaynerchuk,
Okay.
who deals a lot in
Yep.
social media. And he's talking about how to raise awareness of your business and give more than you ask. So
Okay.
that when you ask, and when I say ask, I mean you're gaining sales, right? So that when you ask, it's an easy answer for the people that you're asking because you've given as much, how to be great at marketing your business, giving information, leading people to solutions so that when they need to buy a solution, it's a no-brainer to work with you. The other book that I like is a little bit more I don't know, it's a little bit more philosophical, and
Okay.
it's a book called and I wasn't authorized to give two books. I'm off the rails here. And it's a book called The Four Agreements. It's
Okay.
by an author named Don Miguel Ruiz, and it just talks about making four agreements with yourself to improve the course of your life. One of those agreements is always doing your best. Another agreement is don't take anything personally. Another agreement is sort of separating from the domestication of the planet. Like the society wants you to do certain things, and sometimes when you fall into those certain things, it can inhibit your ability to have a fruitful, amazing life. I can't remember all four of them. It's been a while since I read the book, but that book really changed my thinking about myself and what I was capable of. So I think even if it's just the audio book, it's still a great audio book to listen to. So those would be my two suggestions.
No, I think that's really cool, and I think that the I've followed Gary Vaynerchuk on social media, and he's got a lot of good advice for anything and everything dealing with business related anything.
Yes. Yes.
And the Four Agreements book, I think in grad school at some point in time I read through parts of it,
Mhm.
but I definitely am going to go back and hit on that because I think with those agreements, it's not only just for. I mean, it's personal advice for just your general life, and it
Mhm.
is all facets of how a good way to live life, I guess.
Absolutely.
A
Absolutely.
couple more questions. If you dislike blank and if you like blank, being a personal trainer might be or might not be the right career path for you. So this was brought on by our athletic trainer, and hers was if you dislike feet because they're wrapping ankles, taping ankles, doing all that stuff. So
Right.
feet, being an athletic trainer is not the right spot for you. As
Mhm.
far as personal training, if you dislike blank, then being a personal trainer is not the right career path for you.
Um, I would say if you dislike being diplomatic, right? And if you dislike listening, then
Yeah.
personal training is not the right job for you. Um, people people who hire personal trainers usually are having an internal conflict, and they'll verbalize it a lot. And that means that they will specifically ask you for help with something, pay you for that help, and then reject the help that you give them. And that's because of sort of the whole behavior change psychology.
Yep.
It's not because they want to be difficult. And if you're not able to be diplomatic, you will produce a knee jerk thing this workout, this isn't going to work, et cetera, et cetera. And that takes a lot of diplomacy. And as they're explaining the concerns that they have, as they're talking through their own behavior changes, you really do end up doing a lot of listening. Coaching is much more listening than it in this context. It's much more listening than it is verbalizing. So if you don't like listening, it's probably not a great career for you.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And like I said, that behavior change implement of they'll pay you for it and then they won't follow your
They
advice.
won't do it.
Kind of funny, just listening to that. I like it.
Is.
And then if you do like blank, then this might be the right career path for you.
If you do like problem solving, it's always a puzzle because every single person is an individual. So you're doing a fair amount of detective work to find out what the right combination of things are for the individual that you're dealing with. And that's it's a step past the exercise because the biology is pretty simple, right?
Right.
I know that squats are going to help improve strength and muscularity in the quadriceps, the hamstrings, and the glutes, right?
Mhm.
The psychology of it is where the puzzle comes in. Does my client want me to be in constant contact with them? Do I need to check in on them daily? Or does that push them away? Is that disadvantageous for their personality type? Do they want to be left alone and be left to check in when they want to? And they work better that way. Like every human being that you work with is a puzzle. It gets easier to solve the puzzle the more humans that you interact with. But if you like the detective work, the process of figuring things out and putting things together and interchanging things, it's a great and extremely entertaining business for that type of personality type because you're always going to have something to work on, always something to piece together. It never gets dull because every human is so different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it definitely never gets dull. Dealing with however many patient or clients you have, if you have 40, 50, 100 clients, they all have those different needs. They all have those different goals and expectations, and you're helping them along their journey. As far as a mantra or quote, what do you have as far as like your personal life, kind of live your life through?
There's a couple of quotes that come to mind. One specifically for me in terms of business on the internet, because it's easy to sell people things that they don't need, right? And Jonathan Goodman was the one that pointed out this quote to me, but it's a quote from Upton Sinclair. And the quote is, "It's difficult to get a man to understand something when his income depends on his not understanding it." And that sort of guides my moral compass as a coach, because I could say that I can help you lose weight in 30 days, 50 pounds in 30 days. But I understand the science there, and that's not true.
Right.
It would be easier for me to make money if I said that. I could explode my income. But I have understanding of what the reality is. And there is difficulty in working with my actual understanding because it would be more profitable for me to pretend to not understand. It's difficult to get a man to understand something when his income depends on his not understanding. And I never want to operate in that space.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful, and not knowing what you don't know and leaving that at that. So let's do a last shout out. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you via social media, your website, and your app, where can they find you and your fitness training?
It's all at Fitness Jones Training. Instagram, Facebook, website, www.com, all those places, just Fitness Jones Training. It's a weird name, and nobody's taking it yet because of the weirdness. And I appreciate that.
It's good to be weird.
It's good to be weird. I don't know how to be another way.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us. We really appreciate it, and getting out all your knowledge about personal training, business experience, and life in general. We really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Drew. It was a pleasure to be here, man. I love what you're doing.
If you've made it this far into the episode, I want to thank you again for watching. Please subscribe, share, and comment below with any questions or comments you may have. If you're interested in more information about other professions within healthcare careers, please visit healthsciencecoach.com and talk to your school counselor or academic advisor. As always, stay happy, healthy, and live life with passion.